Heya Cryptozens. Tonight's show. Government shows their hand on tornado cash. U.S. lawmaker presses FDIC on crypto firms. And Colombia to fight tax evasion with a CBDC. It's 10 p.m. Pacific time. The date is August 17th, 2022. And welcome back to the Crypto Overnighter. My name is Nikodemus, and I will be your host. The cover model, mascot, and co-host for this podcast is Tax. And together we take a nightly look at the crypto, NFT, and metaverse space and the industry that surrounds it. And keep in mind, nothing in this show should ever be considered financial advice. Crypto Twitter was shocked last week. Dutch officials arrested one Alexei Pertsev for writing code. Well, now Dutch officials are saying that it might be punishable if a developer writes code, quote, for the sole purpose of committing criminal acts. So this is the latest development in the case, which saw the Netherlands Fiscal Information and Investigation Service arrest a 29-year-old developer in Amsterdam because they worked on Tornado Cash, because they wrote code. Now remember, at first we didn't know who this guy was. We didn't know their name, nothing. Well, now it's thanks to reporting from the block that we do know who he is. Now, for their part, FIOD wrote, the development of a tool is not prohibited, but if a tool has been created for the sole purpose of committing criminal acts, for example, to conceal criminal flows of money, then putting online, making available a developed tool may be punishable. Now, this information comes to us from DeFi Education Fund. They've been in touch with FIOD since last week. They've been sharing their responses on Twitter. But it would seem like this should be something that's pretty hard to prove. I mean, that bit about created for the sole purpose of committing criminal acts. How do you prove that in the case of a service that you've opened up to the entire public? Unless you're trying to say that all users of Tornado Cash were scumbag criminals breaking the law, and I think that would even be harder to prove. That said, don't get your hopes up. I'll tell you what I mean in a bit. Now, if you were to talk to the U.S. Treasury Department, they'll tell you what they said on August 8th, that they sanctioned Tornado Cash because criminals used it to, quote, launder more than $7 billion worth of virtual currency since its creation in 2019. Here's why that's significant. $7 billion is the total amount of funds that have been processed through Tornado Cash. So if Tornado Cash has only done $7 billion in transactions, and they're saying $7 billion in transactions was criminal, well, that tells you something. That they consider all Tornado Cash users to be criminals. Now, while we're talking about two different governments, they are showing the same attitude. Crypto mixing is for criminals. We had a U.S. official, Anthony Blinken. He's the Secretary of State. And he put out a tweet and then deleted it 63 minutes later. In the first tweet, he said, quote, we will continue to aggressively pursue actions against currency mixers laundering virtual currency for criminals. Today, U.S. Treasury sanctioned virtual currency mixer Tornado Cash, which is a U.S.-sanctioned DPRK state-sponsored hacking group used by the DPRK to launder money. Now, like I said, he deleted it, and he replaced it with one that said that Tornado Cash was used to launder money by the North Koreans. As far as Alexei Pertsev goes, it's hard to get a read on it at this point. If they were in the United States, well, then his right to write code would be constitutionally protected. As is, however, he's in the Netherlands, and they're accusing him of writing code for the sole purpose of facilitating criminal acts. Max Bernstein is the DeFi Education Fund's communications lead. He said, quote, Tornado Cash was routinely used for legitimate purposes. While we are still waiting for the specific charges against the developer to be released, the following must remain clear. Writing and publishing code must be protected in free societies, and privacy is not a crime. At the time of writing, the global crypto market cap is $1.12 trillion. It's down 2.35% in 24 hours. The top 5 cryptos by market cap are Bitcoin down 2.55%, Ethereum down 2.21%, Tether, USDC, and Binance Coin down 3.46%. U.S. Senator Pat Toomey, Republican from Pennsylvania. He is on his way out the door, but he has things he wants to get accomplished before that happens. Crypto is one of those things. And it looks like he got wind that the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation might be putting their thumb on the scale where banks are concerned, pressuring them to avoid servicing cryptocurrency companies. This came from Senator Toomey on Tuesday. So he wrote a letter, and this letter went to acting FDIC Director Martin Gruenberg. And in that letter, Senator Toomey told acting Director Gruenberg that he'd heard from, quote, affected parties, that he'd gotten whistleblower communications, and that these communications alleged that the FDIC had tried to, quote, deter banks from doing business with lawful cryptocurrency-related companies. They allegedly did so even though it's not at all illegal to provide services to crypto. And so the senator wanted to know whether any FDIC officials had ever asked banks not to do business with crypto firms, and why. Also in that letter, Toomey brought up Operation Choke Point. That was a FDIC and Justice Department initiative, the purpose of which was to pressure banks not to provide services to different classifications of people like payday loans and financial fraud. That said, they seem to go further, pressuring banks not to provide services to companies providing legal services like gun sellers. Toomey wrote, quote, according to whistleblower communications that we have corroborated, personnel in the FDIC's Washington, D.C. headquarters are urging FDIC regional offices to send letters to multiple banks requesting that they refrain from expanding relationships with crypto-related companies without providing any legal basis for sending such letters. And from what Toomey wrote, at least one bank had plans. They were going to offer their customers access to a crypto exchange directly through their mobile banking app. Now, reportedly, the FDIC also directed a regional branch to downgrade the classification of a loan. This is a loan from a bank to a crypto company. Toomey called that highly atypical. The FDIC responded, saying, quote, the FDIC is acting consistent with long-standing legal authorities to ensure that banks engaging in crypto-related activities are doing so in a safe and sound way that protects customers. This may involve the FDIC requesting that an institution delay initiating or refrain from expanding crypto-related activities until supervisory feedback is taken into account. Given the risks readily apparent in the crypto asset markets, these are necessary and appropriate actions to take. Now, as far as I can tell, the FDIC is the repeat offender here. Last April, they posted an open letter to any banks or other financial institutions that they cover. And in that letter, they told the banks that they have to talk to the FDIC before engaging in any crypto-related activities. The letter said, quote, the information requested by the FDIC will vary on a case-specific basis, depending on the type of crypto-related activity. However, the initial notification to the FDIC regional director should describe the activity in detail and provide the institution's proposed timeline for engaging in the activity. And that's pretty similar to the one that the Federal Reserve put out this week. That one also tells banks to contact the central bank before engaging in crypto activities. The global NFT market cap is down 1.71%. Sales volume is down 0.75% in 24 hours. According to CoinMarketCap, the top 5 NFT collections by sales volume are Bored Apes, followed by Mutant Apes, Otherdeed, Moonbirds, and Doodles. And keep in mind, some of these collections have very volatile prices, so do your own research. So, Colombia feels like that they have a bit of a problem with tax evasion. Right now, it's estimated that they're losing as much as 8% of their GDP in tax evasion. That's according to Luis Reyes. He's the head of the Colombian Tax and Customs National Authority. According to him, they want to use a digital currency to prevent illegal financial activity like tax evasion. So this plan is part of Colombia's new monetary policy. According to an official cited in a local magazine, these are measures meant to increase the transparency of people's financial transactions. And that's because they're estimating 6 to 8% of the country's gross domestic product. That's just how prevalent that tax evasion really is. Now, Reyes, playing the role of central banker, he would have you believe that a central bank digital currency would be a benefit in terms of user experience. He said, quote, "The creation of a digital currency would make these transactions easier for the consumer." Now, they didn't say specifically a central bank digital currency. It could mean a asset-backed national currency like Venezuela's petro. Hernando Vargas is the technical deputy governor at the Central Bank of Colombia. Now, previously, he looked into a retail CBDC earlier this year. Specifically, he was looking at what the implications were for such a system. From his standpoint, he says cash is preferred, especially for low-cost payments, which is going to be difficult because the government plans on banning cash transactions for amounts greater than 10 million Colombian pesos, or around $2,350 US. Quote, "A line of defense against a widespread use of cryptocurrencies and stablecoins is a weaker in Colombia than other jurisdictions, and the discussion about adoption of a retail CBDC becomes particularly interesting." Now, as an aside, Colombia has a new president, Gustavo Petro. He is pro-crypto. Back in 2017, he said Bitcoin could take power from the government and return it to the people. He said, quote, "Virtual currency is pure information and therefore energy." Now, which you compare that to politics in the U.S., it's somewhat backward. Petro is an ex-guerrilla. He's the first ever left-wing president in Colombia. And in the U.S., crypto is a right-leaning topic. Well, last year, the 62-year-old president said that Colombia should be making Bitcoin using sustainable energy, producing Bitcoin instead of cocaine. That said, I am not at all a fan of CBDCs. They're like the evil twin of cryptocurrency. Whereas Bitcoin and cryptocurrency are all about taking back control of your financial existence, CBDCs are all about taking that control and handing it to the government. And that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank you, my listeners, because when you stop listening, I will stop talking. Take care of yourselves, but take care of each other too. We'll see you tomorrow night.